Don't let life bury you, shake it off and rise. Once upon a time in a quiet rural town nestled between rolling hills and golden fields, there lived an old farmer named Henry. Henry had spent his whole life tending to his land, raising crops, and caring for his animals. Among them was a donkey named Earl, a loyal companion who had worked alongside him for many years, carrying heavy loads and plowing fields through rain and shine. But time had passed, and Earl had grown old. His steps were slower now, his back a little bent, and he no longer had the strength to help much around the farm. Still, Henry couldn't bring himself to let Earl go. So he let the donkey roam freely in the pastures, enjoying the peace of his final years. One warm afternoon, Earl wandered too close to the edge of an old, abandoned well hidden in the tall grass. With a sudden misstep, he tumbled in. The fall wasn't deadly, but the well was deep and narrow. Earl was trapped. Alone and frightened, the donkey began to bray long, sorrowful cries that echoed up the stone walls. Hours passed, and finally a neighbor named Joe, who had come by to borrow a tool, heard the cries. When he peered into the well and saw Earl, his heart sank. Without wasting time, he raced to tell Henry. Henry and a group of neighbors came running, shovels and ropes in hand. When they looked down and saw Earl, his ears drooping, eyes full of panic, they did everything they could to pull him up. But the well was too deep, and Earl was too heavy. Nothing worked. As the sun began to dip behind the hills, Henry stood silently, torn. Earl had been his friend for years, but he was old, and maybe, just maybe, this was nature's way of saying goodbye. With a heavy heart, he made a decision. "I hate to do this," he whispered, "but we can't leave him suffering. Let's fill the well. It's the kindest thing we can do." The neighbors hesitated but nodded, trusting Henry's judgment. One by one, they began shoveling dirt into the well. Down at the bottom, Earl felt the first clumps of dirt hit his back. Realization struck him like lightning. They were giving up on him. Burying him alive. He cried out in despair, a loud, aching sound that startled even the birds in the trees. But then something shifted in him. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was survival. Or maybe it was something deeper, a will to live, to fight, to matter. With every shovel of dirt that fell on him, Earl did something remarkable. He shook it off. Then, he stepped on it. Dirt kept coming. Shake it off. Step up. Over and over again. The people above didn't notice at first. But soon, the braying stopped. Curious, Henry leaned over the edge and gasped. There was Earl, slowly rising with each layer of dirt, climbing higher with quiet determination. The very thing meant to bury him was lifting him to freedom. Finally, with one last push, Earl stepped up and out of the well. His coat was dusty, but his eyes were shining with something fierce and beautiful, self-belief. The crowd stood in stunned silence. Then, one by one, they broke into cheers. Henry knelt down beside Earl, eyes wet. "You old stubborn soul," he whispered. "You weren't done. I see that now." But Earl didn't stay. He turned, gave Henry one last look, and walked toward the open fields. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. He had been saved not by others, but by his own will to rise. Moral of the story: when life tries to bury you, shake it off and step up. What's meant to break you might be the very thing that sets you free. You are never too old, too forgotten, or too lost to rise again, as long as you believe you can.